Hello, everyone, and very good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. And thank you for being with us today. My name is Mark Nene, and I am the director of the Regional Center of Excellence Against Hunger and Malnutrition, in short, CERFAM. And it is my pleasure today to moderate this webinar titled Boosting Nutrition at the Source, Biofortification for a Healthier Africa. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is the fourth webinar in our series titled A Healthier Future for Africa, a Food System Approach to Combating Malnutrition. This series is a joint initiative of the Healthy Diet for Africa project funded by the European Union and CERFAM, a center established by the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire to support African countries in their efforts toward the Sustainable Development Goals. The series explores the complexity of food systems in Africa from production to consumption, and we highlight actionable solutions to make healthy diets accessible and affordable for all. We know malnutrition is a pressing global issue affecting 1 in 3 people worldwide. And one of the most pervasive forms, especially in low and middle income countries, is micronutrient deficiencies, often referred to as hidden hunger. This is a chronic lack of essential vitamins and minerals, such as iron, zinc, and vitamin A, due to insufficient consumption of nutrient-dense food. Allow me to share very briefly with you some sobering statistics. Around 1.6 billion women of reproductive age and young children globally suffer from micronutrient deficiencies. In sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, 9 in 10 women have 1 or more deficiencies. In West Africa, 52% of women of reproductive age and about 70% of children suffer from anemia, with no country on track to achieve the SDGs target for anemia, which is halving from the 2012 prevalence level. Over 40% of children under 5 in sub-Saharan Africa are affected by vitamin A deficiencies. And we know these deficiencies impair growth, learning, productivity, and sometimes can even be life-threatening. We also know that economically, they can be responsible for up to 5% of GDP loss. So all this brings us to today's focus, biofortification, the process of breeding crops to naturally increase their nutritional value, particularly their micronutrient content. And we know it is a powerful tool to enrich staple foods that millions rely on every day. So today's webinar will explore the potential of biofortification to build resilient, nutritious, and sustainable food systems in Africa. And our panelists will explore innovations in crop breeding, seed system, and consumer acceptance, while also highlighting contributions from the Healthy Diet for Africa project. Please join me to welcome our panelists, Professor Alice Fernie from the Max Planck Institute of Molecular Plant and Plant Physiology in Germany, Professor Tsenko Gechev, Center of Plant System Biology and Technology from Bulgaria, Dr. Sally Atanga from Africa Rice in Côte d'Ivoire, and Dr. Olapeju Fobi from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nigeria. Before we begin our session, just a few notes of housekeeping. Interpretation services are available in French and in English via the interpretation button below. You can access them by clicking. And you can also share throughout the sessions your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that we'll address them during the dedicated Q&A sessions after the presentations. So feel free to post your questions as our presentation share their insights. Our first panelist for today is Professor Alistair Fernie. So Professor Alistair has been with the Max Planck Institute of Molecular Plant Physiology for over 25 years. His research focuses on metabolic regulation of crop plants, and he is internationally recognized for pioneering genome-wide approaches to crop nutrition, to improving crop nutrition. Professor Fernie will speak about how classical and modern breeding technologies are being used to improve the nutritional values of crop. Professor Fernie, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. So let me just share the screen. And can you see the screen now?
Excellent.
Okay.
If you can just put it in slide mode.
Slide mode, yeah. Okay.
That's perfect.
Fine. Perfect. Thank you very much, Mark. So as Mark mentioned, the work of my lab's largely been focused on understanding the metabolic capacity and the metabolic accumulation in crop species. And what I will present today is a few slides on current need and current possibilities for biofortification by both classical and novel breeding technologies. And the work I'm going to talk about comes from the Healthy Diets for Africa project, which is a joint European Union, African Union project. So the Max Planck Institute of Molecular Plant Physiology, where I work, is responsible in collaboration with the University of Ghent and also the University of Gießen to assess the levels of vitamins and the minerals which are important in the diet. So these are of incredible importance to human health because we don't produce these compounds ourselves, therefore they need to be taken up in our diet. And it's been, this is the lack of these, or the lack of adequate micronutrient content in the diet leads to the so-called hidden hunger. So essentially you have enough calories from the macronutrients, but you don't have sufficient nutrition for the body to function optimally, and this is, as Mark mentioned, causing massive problems globally, and I'll come to that in a second. So what we do is we measure these vitamins and minerals using dedicated assays, using highly sensitive mass spectrometers, and the aims of our work are threefold. So either to find vitamin or mineral-rich underutilized crops, which could be used immediately in the diet via just diversification of the diet. Secondly, to identify cultivars or ecotypes of wild relative species, which could be used for classical breeding as a means of elevating the levels of these metabolites. And thirdly, to develop approaches based on new breeding technologies to elevate nutritional value of these important crops. Okay, so just coming to give a global overview, this is an average of all nutrient deficiencies that we prepared for a review that we've just recently submitted. And this shows basically globally there is a problem in nutrient deficiency. So iron deficiency is a problem across the globe. Other deficiencies are greater in certain countries than in others. So Southeast Asia is a particular hotspot, but areas of Africa also have very high nutrient deficiencies. And this is something that needs to be looked at urgently, because like I said, hunger is taking on a different meaning in these decades. So we essentially, calorific hunger is less of a problem than micronutrient hunger, as seen as a global perspective. Of course, this varies from place to place. So what can we do about this? So one potential solution is so-called natural variation screening. So basically, we look at different different varieties, different natural varieties of a crop, and we work out which genotypes have naturally high levels of vitamins, and we can either cultivate these in a wider area, or bring these into novel agricultural environments, or probably more probably not as quickly, but more long-term perspective. Taking a more long-term perspective, we can use these as breeding stock to cross with well-performing varieties in their current setting. So this is a very powerful approach, and it's using classical breeding, so it doesn't have the stigma attached that some of the new breeding technologies have, but it's quite a slow approach. Alternatively, mutational breeding can be used. This has been used for well over a century. The classical approach was using mutagenesis through chemicals. This created untargeted mutants. So basically, there's a lot of genetic change, but you can screen on the phenotype. So maybe this is a route to get elevated nutrients as well. And there's modern versions of this, such as Find It, which I represent on the left of this slide, which is a targeted variant of this approach, and using sequence and modern molecular biology techniques, along with crossings, this can be a more rapid route into getting elevated content of nutrients. And the third approach is so-called novel genetic technologies. So there's two that are very, very prominent and are achieving much greater regulatory acceptance than previous efforts based on transgenesis. So these are the so-called cisgenic approach, where you're not taking any genetic material that's not naturally present in an organism, but rather modifying the expression of certain genes using the native genes, promoters and terminators. Or underneath that is the so-called gene editing approach. So the most common of which is CRISPR, and this is basically a targeted biological mutagenesis that can result either in deletion, very targeted, so very selective changes in genes, and this is a way of modifying the expression levels of certain genes that are involved in certain nutrients. And a very good example of that is a vitamin E. So this has been elevated dramatically in maize via this approach. And as I mentioned, CRISPR gene editing based approaches are accepted, and strong regulatory frameworks are already available for these. So these may result in a more rapid route to increasing the levels of a wide range of micronutrients. So what are we doing in healthy diets for Africa? So as I alluded to, this is mainly centered on assessing nutrient availability in underutilized crops. So to look where nutritional shortcomings can be met immediately via dietary modification. And we're currently in the middle of evaluating vitamin and mineral contents for 23 such species. And these have been selected from across Africa for different regions. And this will also identify variants within a specific crop that are highly nutritious, and we will promote their use in classical breeding programs. But in parallel to this, via targeted approach, we're attempting to biofortify vitamin contents in rice using a combination of novel breeding technologies. So currently, the CRISPR technology is very good for is very good for knocking out gene expression or reducing it, and it is currently being improved, its ability to result in the enhanced expression of a gene by targeting the promoter, but is much more effective in the last years has been overexpression techniques using gene manipulation. And we believe that a multi-pronged approach should allow us to identify, generate highly nutritious food, and ultimately even remove the major current nutritional deficiency problems of the African continent. So I'd like to finish there. I'd like to thank all the partners in the project who've, it's been a very important to have such good collaborators, and I'd be very happy to take any questions people have.
Thank you very much, Professor Ali, for this very interesting, fascinating presentation. I think it's quite interesting to see how we use the classical and then also novel technologies to actually enrich the nutritional values of crops. I find also very interesting what the Healthy Diet for Africa is doing in terms of screening, right? Underutilized crops for their vitamin and mineral contents has a potential as well to impact the diets of African population. Now, from your perspectives, what I would like to know, I mean, also for our attendees here and make it a little bit more digest, when we compare the natural variation, I mean, the screening you mentioned, the classical breeding approach, and also the novel technologies, which one, right, shows the greatest potential for large-scale application in Africa?
Yes, so it's a difficult question to answer. So I think all of them have good potential. I think from a scientific perspective, I would say the novel breeding technologies probably have the greatest potential for improving the levels of vitamins. So if you look in the literature, the levels that have been achieved via the use of novel breeding technologies are considerably higher than that from classical breeding. However, the caveat of this is the food you produce has to be acceptable to the people, and that this is, I think this is an open question about whether people are happy to consume crops that have been modified by gene editing or by gene manipulation. So I think there's a balance there. So I think classical breeding alone can definitely elevate the levels, but it's also a very slow process. You need to go through many generations to stabilize. And if you look at the success of programs such as Harvest Plus, it's taken a long time to get where they got. They made great results, but it's a 20-year process or so. And I think ultimately we wouldn't want to wait 20 years, but rather we'd like to have the result a bit faster. So I think there's two routes to get the result faster. One is, as I mentioned, surveying other crops and seeing if the dietary gaps can be met by diversifying the diet, and whether this is acceptable for the consumer, whether they're happy to take this approach. And on the other hand, I think we should embrace the novel technologies as long as the regulatory control is strong enough. So I think this is important.
Excellent, excellent. I see a lot of questions in the Q&A session. So again, we have a fully dedicated session after all presentation. Thank you very much, Professor Ali. So now we will turn to our second panelist for today, Professor Tsenko Gichev. So quickly, you should know that Professor Tsenko holds a PhD in plant biochemistry and is director of the Center of Plant System Biology and Biotechnology in Bulgaria, as well as professor at the University of Plovdiv. He is a recipient of Bulgaria's most prestigious higher scientific award, the Pythagoras Prize, and he has authored more than 100 publications on plant stress responses and biofortification. Professor Gichev will present on new tomato varieties that are drought tolerant, highly nutritious, and have a longer shelf life. So please, Professor Gichev, you have the floor for your presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank you and the organizers for inviting me to this event. And in the next few minutes, I will tell you about what we do within the frame of Healthy Diets for Africa. So as you introduced the topic of my presentation, we are producing, breeding and introducing new varieties of tomatoes and pepper. And in addition, they have amazing, as you can see, amazing phenotypic diversity in terms of different fruit shapes, sizes, and colors. You see here, this is pepper, and this is on the right tomato, with small cherry to large tomatoes with pink, with deep purple, yellow, etc. colors, but also a diversity in vitamin content. Here is an example of the variation of vitamin C. In addition to that, what we also do within the framework of Healthy Diets for Africa, we are developing new biopriming technology, which is improving crop yield and stress resilience. However, I will not talk about this now because the time is limited. So I will continue and I will focus on the new tomato varieties that we have introduced. As you mentioned, some of them have increased tolerance to various stresses, to diseases, and also have very long fruit shelf life. So what we did, we evaluated, I'll go back, a panel of 150 cultivars and breeding lines. And among those, we aim to select such lines that are tolerant to stresses like drought, salinity, also pathogens, and also cultivars which have increased shelf life. So in terms of drought, we did a very comprehensive analysis of those lines, and what we could see that drought in general is reducing fruit size, fruit weight, and total yield. However, there are still cultivars which have a little bit which preserve their weight and yield even under unfavorable environmental conditions like drought stress. And in terms of fruit number, there were even quite a number of cultivars and breeding lines with higher fruit number. As long as the vegetative growth is concerned, you see that drought is understandably decreasing the height and the canopy, and also it is increasing the frequency of blossom end rot disease, but many lines were actually tolerant. What we also observed as a general trend under water deficiency is that we have increase in total soluble solutes in most, if not all of the cultivars. So although we have a decrease in yield, fruits are juicier, tastier, and with more solutes. We also did metabolite profiling of those 150 lines. So we could observe, as you can see, that there's a clear metabolic changes shift induced by drought, and there are some metabolites that are accumulating under water deficiency. In particular, we have proline accumulation, sucrose, and some other organic acid, sugars, etc., that are that increase in abundance under drought conditions. As I mentioned, we also have an increased incidence of blossom end rot disease under drought stress. However, some lines, 28 lines, did not show any severe symptoms, and some did not show any symptoms of this blossom end rot, even under drought conditions. And under normal conditions, almost all the lines were behaving quite normally. We also evaluated the shelf life of post-harvest shelf life of those 150 cultivars. After we collected them, we let them stay for as long as they can stay. And for most of the fruits decayed in a matter of 2-3 weeks. However, some cultivars and some breeding lines had very long-lasting fruits up to even more than 2 months. You see here, this is in days, so it is up to 100 days for some of those cultivars. We then selected 14 of those 150 lines to do a more thorough investigation in terms of drought tolerance and shelf life and nutritional qualities. And you see here that some here are on in A. These are well water plants, and here under drought stress they are becoming they're yellowing. So we have drought-induced senescence, which can be measured very easily by chlorophyll content. And you see that some of the lines retain their chlorophyll even under drought conditions, and also we measured plant height and other parameters and yield, so they are more tolerant to drought. They are not affected by water deficiency. We also evaluated the shelf life of those and those 14 lines, and you see that some of those, including the control cultivar moneymaker, they have a shelf life of 2 or 3 weeks under control and under low water conditions. However, some lines like some cultivars like Selzica, line 118 and Minimis have very durable fruits which can stay fresh for more than for 2 months. And if you look at the weight loss evaluated as grams per day, you see that these cultivars like Minimis, Selzica, Alia 118 and some others do not actually lose their water, and they stay fresh for, as I say, for a very long period of time. I'll come back to this cultivar later on. But what we also did in cooperation with another partner of Healthy Diets, this is the group of Professor Dominique van der Straten and her postdoc David Cao, evaluated vitamin B content, several vitamins of the B group, and you see that some of those selected lines and cultivars not only have beneficial properties like drought tolerance and long shelf life, but also have higher levels of vitamins, like, for example, vitamin B1, vitamin B3, B5, and so on. And so we have really very useful breeding lines and cultivars. One of this line, number 23, we registered as a new tomato cultivar, which we called Minimis. And we did a transcriptomic and metabolomic analysis, very comprehensive, at different stages of fruit development, starting with the green stage, then 2 breaker stages, TP2 and 3, then the fully ripe tomatoes, and then tomatoes that were stored 1 month post-harvest and 2 months post-harvest. So these are with very long shelf life. So you see that PCA plot that the replicas group very nicely. This is the green tomatoes, the 2 breaker stages, the fully ripe, and the 2 post-harvest time points, including 2 months post-harvest. So we evaluated, we found several genes that are differentially expressed. I'm not going into details, but these are potentially interesting genes. We also did metabolite profiling of these 6 stages, including the green one that you see here, then the 2 breaker stages, the fully ripe here, and then the 1 month and 2 months post-harvest. So we could see many metabolites are changing, but in summary, we have many organic acids that are in the green stage, including acids from the TCA cycle, like citric acid, malic acid, etc. Then in the breaker stage, we have changes and accumulating of more sugars, which are peaked. Most of the sugars are peaked in the fully ripe fruits, which is natural. And then 1 and 2 months, 2 months after harvesting, we have higher levels of amino acids. So it's quite interesting observation. So with this, I would like to end my presentation as the time is limited, but I'm open to questions. I would like to acknowledge Sorry, maybe I have to conclude first that we have identified new tomato breeding lines and cultivars with tolerance to drought and long shelf life. And also some of them have high nutritional properties like vitamins, essential amino acids. And we believe that some of those new cultivars are suitable for Africa as well. And to acknowledge my team from CPSBB and also the team of Dominique van der Straten from Ghent, University of Ghent, Belgium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gichev, for that excellent presentation, by the way. I think it's very encouraging to hear how drought-tolerant and nutrient-rich tomato varieties with extended shelf life have been developed. I mean, when we know the major challenge of post-harvest loss and also food loss in general represent to food security in Africa. And I think there's no question that this innovation could directly benefit African farmers, right, facing water stress and also consumers dealing with food loss. Now, I would like to know, maybe for our attendees in particular, how you see this innovation contributing to long-term food and nutrition security across Africa, and what can be done in particular for these tomato cultivars to reach smallholders farmers in Africa?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Well, we believe that these new cultivars are really suitable for Africa, for many growers, producers, but also they will be good for example, for customers, and they can be easily produced. They can tolerate all those unfavorable environmental conditions, and the long shelf life in particular is a very good feature which allows them to just stay without any special storage in fridge, etc., which is really good for everyone. So you don't need refrigerators. You can, I mean, this durability is really amazing, and this in combination with the high vitamin content of some of those lines is really help. We believe it would help to combat malnutrition. I have to thank Professor Fernier for introducing the importance of vitamins in his lecture, because this is really important. And now we have the combination of this high vitamin content cultivars, which are also resilient to stresses and with extended shelf life, which is, I think, really perfect. I should also mention something that I did not mention in my presentation, but we are working on other species as well, in particular pepper. So but also others. So we hope that we could also offer this. We during the previous consortium meeting, I distributed some of those seeds to some of the partners, but we need indeed a little bit of more promotion, and then to see how they can grow under those local conditions. But I'm sure that they will do well, because here we tested them in field, and this year I will say only this because I know that the time is short, but we tested outside in the field under very brutal conditions, because we had very high temperatures, drought stress, and also high solar radiation, so three stresses at once. So it was multi-stress, and those survived. And yes, I should probably show one of these that I can taste here now in front of you, but it is really delicious. So maybe next time I will bring more of these, so you can also try. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see we have nearly 80 participants right now, attendees. And for those of you that just joined, we'll have a fully dedicated Q&A sessions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions, you can post it in the Q&A box. Thank you very much, Professor Gichev, for your very insightful presentation. We now move to our third panelist, Dr. Sally, who holds a PhD in agriculture from Hokkaido University in Japan. Dr. Sally is a principal scientist and program leader at Africa Rice Center in Côte d'Ivoire. He is widely published and known for developing innovative rice-based technologies and building multi-stakeholder partnership to strengthen nutrition rice value chains across Africa. Dr. Sally will share innovation from Africa Rice to make rice more nutritious and sustainable across the continent. Dr. Sally.
Thank you, Dr. Mark, for that warm introduction. My name is Sally Atanga. I would focus this presentation on looking at the challenge of malnutrition in Africa. Then I would talk a bit about the healthy rice agenda that Africa Rice is working on. I'll move forward to talk a bit about the differences between our approaches, agronomic and post-harvest fortification approaches compared to the genomic approaches that you have just listened to from our two previous speakers. I'll talk a bit about the work, what we are doing in terms of scaling of those innovations, and then I'll close up. So in terms of the challenge, Africa faces a triple burden malnutrition. That means we have undernutrition. About 30.7% of children in the continent are under 5 years are stunted, 6% are wasted, and about 282 million people are undernourished. When I talk about undernutrition here, we're looking at stunting and wasting as the features caused mainly by low protein and low energy consumption. Again, there's also hidden hunger, which is mainly characterized by micronutrient deficiency. 40.4% of women of reproductive age are anemic. About over 50% of children in Eastern and Southern Africa face malnutrition deficiencies due to low vitamin intakes and low minerals. And finally, there's overnutrition, which is characterized by overweight and obesity, with 34.8% of women are overweight or obese, while 5.2% of children under 5 years are overweight. This is mainly due to low nutrients but high energy foods. And we see that this low nutrient density of foods and diet is the unifying cause of the triple burden of malnutrition in sub-Saharan Africa. So Africa faces coexisting malnutrition, micronutrient deficiency, and obesity. This requires integrated food, health, and policy solutions. Now, another challenge is that, Africa is also changing its diet due to urbanization. Also, lifestyles are changing. People are now consuming more rice than before, and the pace is growing very fast in Africa. This often provides about 50 to 60% of the daily calorie intake in the continent. And this rice, which is really white rice, which is consumed, is dominated by poor, is nutrient poor, is calorie dense, and so there's something, we need to do something. And this poses nutritional risk, for certain people. White rice and other foods like white cereals, like millet and also wheat, they have high glycemic indices. So this leads to rapid blood sugar spikes. They have limited micronutrient contents, which contributes to both undernutrition and overnutrition. And there's lack of dietary diversity due to rice overdependence. So you see most of the countries depend on rice as a major staple. So in the Healthy Rice project, Africa Rice is leading the development and scaling of healthy rice, a next generation climate smart and health sensitive staple that addresses triple burden of malnutrition. So healthy rice is designed simultaneously to boost calorie availability through high yielding varieties and agronomic productivity. So we want to have areas in Africa that are suffering from hunger get high quantities of rice. But at the same time, that rice should deliver key nutrients, so like iron, zinc, folate, calcium, vitamins A and B, through genomic, agronomic biofortification, and post-harvest biofortification and direct fortification. So also we want to have rice that has lower glycemic index, that is lowering post-meal blood glucose spikes, making rice safer, healthier for diabetes and obese individuals and health-conscious consumers. So I will talk a bit now about the different types of fortification. I'll start with agronomic or environmental biofortification. And here these approaches aim to enhance micronutrient content of edible plant parts by improving what the plant takes up from the environment. This is what we call soil crop-based biofortification. And here I'll talk first about the agronomic approach, where it emphasizes us on external inputs. What kind of fertilizers, what kind of foliar sprays are we using? So here we apply mineral fertilizers such as zinc and selenium and iron to the soil, so that those cultivars that are able to pick it up can then accumulate this in the grains. We have foliar sprays directly to the plant leaves, helping them to pick up those nutrients and accumulate them in the edible parts of the plant. And then we have managing soil pH, organic matter, and water regimes to improve nutrient uptakes. We have shown this especially with different rice types, which I'll come back to that. Now, this environmental biofortification here, which emphasizes on ecological soil management techniques. For example, organic matter. When you use organic matter to grow your crops, the nutritional components of the edible part become different, using microbes such as mycorrhizas and biochar for to manage your crop fields. So improving soil quality naturally, using microorganic amendments, biochar and compost. Leveraging beneficial soil microbes, example is the mycorrhiza and rhizobacteria that mobilize nutrients into the edible parts, and then promoting crop rotation or intercrop systems that enhance nutrient availability in the soil. This we have seen in the case of intercropping rice and some legumes. So I will come back to that. I think my colleagues have talked more on this genomic biofortification, and I will not talk a lot on that, but we are doing most of what we are doing, focusing on that Africa rice, is mainly doing conventional breeding, using crossing varieties with naturally higher nutrient threats, bringing those nutrient threats into varieties that are highly acceptable by consumers. Genomic approaches are being used. That's what my colleagues have talked about, using the CRISPR techniques, the marker-assisted selections, on transgenic approaches to upgrade nutrient accumulation pathways. So now, in terms of post-harvest biofortification and direct fortification, this refers to enhancing the nutrient content of food after harvesting, during storage, processing, or preparation. Even when you're cooking, you can still enhance the nutritional content of your foods. Instead of relying on soil genetics or farm practice, it focuses on technological and processing interventions that improve the nutritional value of foods before consumption. And here there are three main pathways. We have direct nutrient fortification during processing. For example, for rice, we have been able to get premix, premix kernels that have been already fortified kernels with the different types of minerals already there. I will do a mixture of 1:100. So one gram of premix to 100 grams of the normal rice. So this is ongoing in several countries and already also in the market. We have also parboiling, soaking, and milling techniques. In parboiling here, the rice is soaked in hot water and then steamed and then dried. And we'll see clearly how this affects the nutrients in my next slide. And then milling techniques. We have also shown that if you milled, for example, rice to a higher degree of milling, you lose all the nutrients. So what we do here is really to make sure that we do mild milling. So we combine appropriate soaking, so we don't soak for long periods of time, because if you soak for long period of time, you are going to lose a lot of nutrients. You do steaming and then you do mild milling to preserve higher amounts of nutrients. And then during storage, this is storage-based enhancements. So there are some nutrients that if you store in the open air, you will lose most of them. So hermetic storage systems have been developed to prevent nutrient loss, especially vitamins, antioxidants, and bioactive compounds. And we are doing a lot of this in our work. So what are the key differences between agronomic, environmental, and genomic and post-harvest biofortification. So you can see the features you have where it applies. Agronomics mostly on the soil, that's and the field, that's soil and crops. The main drivers here are the inputs and management. The time frame is short-term and it's seasonal. So every season you need to do that so that the crops that are coming out of that season have good nutritional composition. And then sustainability requires repeated inputs. So you need to consider these examples as zinc fertilizers, compost, and biochar. For genomic biofortification here, we need the plant genome. So we're looking at the genetic composition of the plant. And then here we need breeding and genetic approaches. It is long-term, so it takes about, in Africa rice now, we are able to produce varieties over 4 years in the breeding, shorten the breeding cycle, but somewhere it can take up to 10 years, so it's really long-term. It is heritable and durable, so once it is done, this maintain that gene over a long time. For example, the issue of golden rice, there's also zinc rice, iron-rich beans are examples. For post-harvest, the focus is mainly on processing and storage. Here, the main drivers are technology, so and food processing. It's immediate, so you do it and people can have it in the market. It depends on infrastructure, and examples are the fortified rice kernels, nutrient-infused rice. We have produced rice crackers that are nutrient-rich, as well as parboiled rice. Now, what are just some of the examples I'll talk about here? What we have done under Healthy Diets for Africa project, we have been able to screen a lot of rice germplasms across Africa, and what we saw was that we're looking mainly for iron, zinc, protein, and phytate. And our idea was to get, we had certain criteria, and we identified some very, very interesting lines that we have looked in literature and we could not get those values. So we have very good, about 76 lines with high zinc content, 76 lines with high iron content, 41 lines with high zinc content, very high zinc content, and you can see about 24 lines with high protein contents. Protein contents in rice were about 8%, but here we have up to between 22 to 24%, or 25% of protein content. And you know, protein content of rice is really, really good. And then we have also lines with very low phytate content. So here, the phytate here is really determining the bioavailability of these nutrients, because high phytate contents will reduce the availability of those nutrient contents. So this work is ongoing. We're doing this with Giessen University, and it's really moving very well. And so what we are doing is to use some of these lines for back crossing to produce into materials that are highly acceptable by the population. For example, if you look at Faro 44 in Nigeria, that is highly consumed, how can we introduce do back crossing and introduce these high iron, zinc, and protein genes into those materials? The next is really looking at agronomic biofortification, which is we see as a sustainable strategy to enhance the nutritional quality of rice. And here we have a study that's ongoing in three locations, Côte d'Ivoire, Madagascar, and Senegal, using 2 biofortified crops, 1 red rice and 1 local check. And we are using the treatments here are no zinc, foliar, soil, and combined foliar and soil treatments. We are doing, the duration has been between 2024 and 2025. We have 4 cropping seasons, wet and dry seasons. And so this is just the land to show you. So here we're looking at the grain yields, iron, zinc, phytate content in brown and polished rice, as well as in parboiled and non-parboiled states. We are also doing work on low glycemic index and mineral content in rice for the population. So we have already identified best methods to produce low glycemic rice, which are the varieties and the processing regimes to produce low glycemic rice. This work is published, and we have identified some key varieties. For example, Orolux 6 is a key variety that is highly acceptable by the population, has low glycemic value, especially when parboiled and polished. And also we have demonstrated that compared to white rice, you see parboiled rice has very high nutritional content, and you can see, look at folate, you can look at values of folate. Folate here, B6, niacin, thiamine. You see the very high values, also low values in terms of sodium, which is very good. You can look at lipid content, zinc, copper, iron, very high in parboiled rice compared to non-parboiled rice. So our idea is really to push people to consume parboiled rice. When you look at other mineral, how does the other mineral content is affected by the origin, processing type, and parboiling methods? What comes out clear to us, as I showed in my previous slide, is that the parboiled rice is better, except for zinc content, where there's a lot of zinc lost after parboiling. And we try to investigate this by looking, is it the parboiling method that is affecting this? And the answer was yes. So you look at the improved germ parboiling here, that is improved parboiling technique. You see the nutritional contents of rice are much higher compared to the rudimentary methods. So parboiled rice that is rudimentary parboiled may really lose a lot of nutrient contents compared to white rice. But if you use improved parboiling methods, you are really making a lot of gains. And then when we looked at imported versus domestic rice, we saw that the cultivars in Africa tend to have higher nutritional content than those that were coming from outside the continent. And this was very interesting. And this confirmed what we saw in our Africa rice germplasm when we analyzed, especially the glaberimas and some of the traditional lines. We saw the nutritional content of those varieties was very, very high. So we are looking at we are trying to proceed to look at also the vitamin contents as well. So what are we doing with these innovations? We have been promoting this. So we have set up what we call rice innovation platforms, healthy rice villages across Africa. We have set up about 154 women parboiling groups that have been supported, and most of them produce about 2 million, they supply rice to 2 million consumers monthly, with key benefits being increased production efficiency, improved nutritional quality of rice. When I talk nutritional quality, I mean both mineral contents and low glycemic values. We have reduced energy costs because most of these systems that we're promoting are using husk rather than firewood, and we have noticed a very lower CO2 emissions linked to rice parboiling by up to 60%. I want to end here and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sally, for this very fascinating presentation as well on one of the staple foods consumed by millions and millions in Africa. I find it quite interesting, the perspective you presented. I mean, the combination of agronomic, genomic, and post-harvest technologies, innovations to actually improve the nutritional value of these staple foods. Now, I want to give you the opportunity maybe to tell us a little bit more about the different types of rice that you described in some of your last slides, and which one is best to consume when we talk about brown rice, parboiled rice, and white rice.
So, okay, there are several trade-offs. Okay, what kind of rice you need to consume? First of all, brown rice is just rice that has the first husk removed. So you have brown rice. When you go to polishing, when you go to the mill and that rice is polished, that means the bran is removed. Then you have what we call white rice. So generally, the brown rice has higher nutritional content, so higher minerals and content than white rice. But also high phytate content, and there's also high risk that you may have some heavy metals in areas where heavy metal toxicity is common. You may have high heavy metals in brown rice. So you need to know and look at very well. There's a trade-off of consuming brown rice where you stand the risk of consuming high phytates, which even though you are getting high nutrients, you may not receive as much, you may not absorb as much of those nutrients because of the high phytate contents in brown rice. So the white rice is good, but mainly for energy-seeking people who you have high energy work to do during the day and so on. White rice is good for young people, but you have to also be careful because it can lead to spikes in your glucose. So I would really prefer to support to say, okay, you want to go with parboiled rice. And parboiled rice, as I said before, it's rice that is soaked. Mild soaking is soaked not for long. If you soak it for long, you lose a lot of nutrients. So you soak mildly and you parboiled. In that case, the minerals migrate into the rice. So during milling, the rice doesn't lose a lot of the minerals. So they remain in the endosperm that is consumed, and it also has the low glycemic values. So for now, I would recommend people to eat parboiled polished rice, parboiled but mildly polished rice. So you polish it very mildly, you preserve all the nutrients, you take off some of the phytate, and also we saw that when you soak, the phytate content also drops, so phytate also leaches into the water, the amylose content also reduces, so all this makes the rice healthier in terms of the minerals that you receive, as well as it is low glycemic and it's also safer to eat. So for people who have managing diabetes or managing obesity and who are health conscious, I would really, really recommend them to go with parboiled rice, but also please stick to the recommended quantities that your doctor has asked you. If your doctor says eat 2 or 3 spoons of rice per day, then I would recommend you to eat 2 or 3 spoons of parboiled rice very conveniently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sally. We now welcome our last but not least panelist, Dr. Forby. Dr. Forby holds a PhD in nutrition and dietetics, and she has over 25 years of experience in food and nutrition system. She led national surveys and fortification initiatives in Nigeria, served as country director of the International Potato Center, and is internationally recognized through fellowships and leadership programs, including awards and the African Nutrition Leadership Program. Dr. Forby will discuss IITA's work in Nigeria to boost biofortification with a specific focus on youth engagement and scaling opportunities. Dr. Forby, please share your insights.
Thank you, Dr. Mark, and good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you are on the surface of the earth. Like you said, my name is Olapeju Forby. I work for IITA. I'm in one of the team that is implementing healthy diet for Africa in Nigeria. Today, we'll be looking at the efforts of IITA and healthy diet for Africa in Nigeria. So by background, we'll be looking at the background, what we are doing, our strategy for implementation, the collaboration, the capacity building that we're engaging with the youth entrepreneurs, and our scaling strategy with follow-up. By the background, I won't bother us with this. Dr. Mark has done justice to that. Biofortification, in a simple language, is enriching our staple crops that are everyday consumed in the country. We're looking at enhancing the nutritional value by adding micronutrients of interest from the source through either genetic engineering or conventional selective breeding. And IIT has been in collaboration with organizations like Harvest Plus and some national system, has been in the development of biofortified crop value chain for over decades, for over a decade now. For a long time, we've been doing it. And what's IITA doing? IITA is working on vitamin A cassava, vitamin A maize. The previous speakers already told us that the figures of micronutrient deficiency in Africa is very alarming, especially for vitamin A deficiency. And in response to that, the focus of our biofortification is vitamin A, but biofortification with what we call provitamin A or beta carotene. That's the focus, and the targeted crops. They are the cassava. We call Nigeria the highest producer of cassava in the whole world, and maize, and looking at the value chain, starting from breeding to production to processing and to awareness sensitization. And to date, there are existing biofortified varieties of these two crops in Nigeria, at least 6 varieties that institutions and organizations nationally and internationally, they are into various aspects of the value chain. And on my right now, you can see the picture of for those who haven't seen this, That's the picture of the yellow cassava that is popularly called and the orange maize. Now, in the context of healthy diet for Africa, IITA is strongly focusing on biofortification there, knowing fully well the project and the institution recognizes and support the proven strategy of assessing healthy diets and alleviating hidden hunger through biofortification in sub-Saharan Africa. In this light, IITA is saddled with the task in the HD for Africa on biofortification, looking at how to increase available newly improved varieties, biofortified varieties, and where to scale it. These two activities, they fall into work packages 4 and 9 of the project. So we're looking at conventional selective breeding to breed more varieties in addition to the existing ones, more varieties in terms of improvement, in terms of higher yielding, in terms of more concentration of beta carotene, pest resistance, and all that. And as a consortium, like I said, we're looking at 2 areas, focusing on 2 aspects. That's the varietal development and scaling. How are we doing this? Our implementation strategy is simply collaboration and capacity. Under collaboration, we know that going by biofortification, by selective breeding takes time and takes resources. So it's not, I can do it all approach. So we have to collaborate. And in this term, we're collaborating with the PVA maize. PVA is provitamin A maize. That's the biofortified varieties of maize. We're collaborating with the breeding units to support breeding of new improved varieties, like I said earlier on, higher in terms of concentration of biofortified crops, higher in better in pest resistance and all that. And also in our trainings and capacity buildings, we do seed distribution and processing. So we got this from the PVA maize breeding unit to get that. Then the other collaboration is collaborator is Harvest Plus. For planting material distribution, all our trainees, they go with planting material distribution and exhibition for the trainees to know what is happening, the reality of processing of these crops outside their world. So we collaborate with Harvest Plus on that. And the giant of them all is the APDC, which is a consortium member of this project. With the APDC, the APDC has a living lab that is looking into agribusiness among youth entrepreneurship within agriculture, agribusiness and other diets. So the first thing we did was to introduce and include biofortification into the package, into the training package in the living lab, followed by training of the youths. The actual training of the youth, of the living lab members. So far, we have had 3 cohorts of none less than 90 of them that we have trained so far. And each training, it's across the value chain, where we look at it from production up to marketing, even consumption. And furthermore, we are privileged to have a pilot plan, a pilot biofortified crop farm in one of the APDC farms as a scaling strategy, and we expatiate on this. So on our capacity building, it's usually a 2-day training program. The first day is for classroom, where we introduce and we show them what we mean by biofortified crop and what the government and development partners are doing around that. So it's mainly theory and the exhibition of processed foods, existing biofortified crops across the country. Then you can see the title there, youthful and useful biofortified value chain. That's the training focus, is you can be youthful and be useful. Then the second day, we move straight to the farm, to the field, where we do planting, actual planting. We teach them to make ridges, how to plant, how to put the seedlings and all that. That's the practical. Then we have practical process of processing, where we open up a small kitchenette for them to process what they can easily take on immediately after the trade. So this is our pictures of training on the field. Now, scaling strategy and follow-up. You see, we have piloted to date now. We have the pilot of our crop farm in APDC, where outside this arrangement, outside this project, they give it to their other beneficiaries, other partners, and from there it goes out. It goes out. We have 3 crops there. We have maize, cassava, and sweet potato there. Then we follow up on the trained youth on their goals to follow them up, to encourage them. And further up, for those who are really interested, we link them up with various biofortification platforms for networking. We already have that. On the platform, buyers meet sellers, farmers meet processors. They meet themselves, they address their issues as much as they can. Then we say from this, there are opportunities from experience that we have had so far at IITA, even in the other diet for Africa. We have opportunities to drive fortification to scale in Nigeria and even outside Nigeria, with what government is doing and development partners have done and they are still doing. For instance, the government promise scaling of biofortified crops to release more varieties, to promote the value chain and all that. These are opportunities from the angle of policymakers and development partners. What does this mean for these youths and other potential stakeholders at large? Opportunities like now in our national documents, policy, food and nutrition policy, food agriculture strategy, biofortification is prioritized in the national policy. That's a great opportunity. The second opportunity is, so far, there has been products developed from these biofortified crops that, youths, women can engage in easily. They pick the product, they fly with the product in production and in commercialization. There is one that was made under USAID project with CRS. The other one was made by Harvest Plus. So with the recipes there that youth can engage on and fly with it. Then currently there is low consumption of biofortified crops according to our National Food Consumption Survey. It's low. That is a great opportunity. That the market is not saturated. People still need to be reached, and youth can cover their niche within fortification space and still have and be able to drive business. Is an opportunity, and many potential markets are available for this primary biofortified crop to move. We have hospitals that we have reached, we have schools, we have institutional markets, we have informal markets. And for youths as a whole, we always tell them there are opportunities there. Planting material production is one of them. Planting material marketing, the processed product marketing and production, they are all there. Youth can be aggregators where they link farmers with processors. So there are huge opportunities that these youths can leverage on. So I say to the Gen Zs and Gen Y, generations Y and Z in scaling fortification, you see, from the 3 cohorts that we have had so far, we could see energy. The first day we train, the second day, these guys are coming with products that they developed on their own overnight. So the energy that the old farmers, the old ones don't have, these ones really have it and are willing to exhibit it, expend it as much as possible in this. With social media use, youth is a great potential for youth. The old ones will not use the social media to market, to do social marketing and commercial marketing. They will not be able, youth will always explore. And even innovative technologies around adoption, they are willing, they have that energy, they have that exposure to do it. However, it is high time that we start to re-engage our youths in Nigeria. Yeah, it was that we can unleash these potentials that are in them. Doing that looks good, but then it's at the moment there are some limitations or challenges to unleashing their potentials around biofortification space. What are these? Access to land. All our primary trainings, like I said, they go with distribution of planting materials for immediate motivation, for motivation to start immediately. But when you give some of them, they say, oh, no, I don't know where, I don't have anywhere to plant it. I don't know what to do with it. I live in a rented apartment. There is no space and all that. So we say that access to land is a limitation to unleashing the potential of this youth when it comes to biofortification value chain. Access to innovative technologies and credit finance, it's another one. They don't have, if you go there, the conditions for them to access funds is not just youth friendly, which we really need to go into. And when policymakers are coming to dialogue, how many youths, are they involved? I did one recently that we were trying to review our policy on food and nutrition in Nigeria. And the people that I was asked to speak to, there was no single youth there. How do we engage if we don't involve them? So in conclusion, I want to say these products are there. Biofortification fortified products, they are there. The markets are there. The opportunities are there. Even the consumers are there. However, the policy, the youth-friendly policy around agribusiness is yet to be there. Yes, we have biofortification policy that is supporting scaling, supporting more products, but then where is the place of youth within fortification in all this policy? If you look at the picture that I showed, I'm concluding now. If you look at the picture that I show here, this is a youth in her 20s. She picked up processing of orange fresh sweet potato, vitamin sweet potato, and today she has a small growing factory. I invited her for this, but Bobina, I'm not sure I invited her, I hope she's there. What she's doing, she's packaging products and selling it. Selling it on Instagram, on Facebook, on all social media. So we want to replicate this, we want to have more of this, and it is doable. On this note, I want to say thank you as we engage our youth.
Thank you very much, Dr. Forby, and thank you a lot for your presentation. I think your emphasis on youth engagement is particularly important, especially when you talk about biofortified value chains, especially knowing that youth, young entrepreneurs can be catalysts for scaling innovation, sorry, and consumption. And the example you presented from Nigeria, gives some very practical tools and approach to achieve this. You insisted very much on the absence of policies and the leverage of the policies to make sure there's adoption. So from your perspective then, can you tell us a little bit more what incentives or policy you think are most effective in increasing consumer uptake of biofortified foods?
Okay, thank you very much. Like I said earlier on, involvement of youth in this to really tap into their potentials. If the policymakers can think and be youth sensitive in this policy, for instance, like I said, one of the few of the youths that we trained said, we even gave free of charge. Take planting materials like maize matures within 100 days. It's short maturing. Take it, I don't have anywhere to. If our policies can look at, okay, when there is a meeting around this thing, engage youth, and when you are doing allocation, farm settlement allocation and all that, have a percentage, a quota system for youth. Why you say anybody above 35, it's what will we give this 10% of whatever we're giving out or 20% beyond the gray hair. Do that and it will be, and when we're talking of funds, accessing funds and credit, why do we put youth? It's not about everybody come. It's about, okay, 10% of this allocation will be given to between 20 and 35 years old. Then we know that beyond that will not accept. So those are the kind of youth-friendly policies, agribusiness policy that we're looking at, that will be specific, that this is for youth and it's for youth. And for that, we will be able to unleash, they will unleash their potentials and do exploit. Like that lady that I showed there, she's already in production. Now, it's for her, how is she getting her raw materials? Oh, yes, she's buying. She doesn't have a farm. She wants to move. She wants to, I personally know her. She wants to move her. She wants to do that. And she's like, I'm doing within the limit of my funds, maybe from parents or for family and all that. But these are the things that institutions should jump at to help to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you again to all our panelists. I think we now open the floor for questions from the audience. So please post your question into the Q&A box and I will direct them to the panelists. We already have a few questions already. So let me go through them and see. I have one here for Professor Alistair. What are examples of 23 crops being analyzed for vitamin and mineral content, and what was the basis of their selection?
Okay. We've got a wide range. So there's a total of 23 crops. So we chose crops that were underutilized across Africa. So there are certain, we had a very long debate on how to do this because there's certain crops that are used widely in one country, but not in another. And we excluded those. There's a very wide diversity of crops. So a lot of them are salad varieties. A lot of them are even not widely cultivated. And then the other crops are just minority crops. So it's quite a wide range of species.
Thank you. One here for Professor Tsenko. How can we access some of these products, especially the seeds for tomatoes and other products that can be used to enhance food production and dietary diversity? So concretely, how can we access?
Yes, you can access them definitely. At the moment, we are selling them in Bulgaria, but we can provide to those who are interested. We can send them samples for free if they want. Just they should let me know, and I can mail seeds from them. But yes, they're commercially, some of them are commercially available. Those that we registered in the past 2 years, 8 new tomato cultivars and 4 new pepper. The rest are still being investigated, or we are in a process of registering some because as I showed you, some have very interesting features. So they are not commercially available yet, but I also have to talk with the partners because I am only partly on this. So this has to be consulted with others, but we may be able to give you samples from those as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Sally, this one is for you, I think. I would like to find out if this rice variety will be properly labeled after production and packaging by producers so as to distinguish each of these rice in order for the general public not to perceive them as GMOs. I mean, a question on labeling after Dr. Sally when it comes to one of those rice varieties.
Yes. So one of the trainings we provide to those that we support is to properly label the rice and in terms of their nutritional composition, in terms of their glycemic values, and whether they are GMO or non-GMO. So those are things we train them on those labeling. And those who are in the market now, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, they are properly labeled. OIC, I think they're here. They are properly labeled their products. So, and they are marketing it as low glycemic rice. So people are buying that rice in that form. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see one question. I think this one is probably for Dr. Forby. I think I'll give you the opportunity probably to tell us a little bit more about the biofortification platforms you mentioned, because I think this is central to your effort. And I see questions here in the chat box about how you put together in contact, all those stakeholders in the process of your efforts.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we have a biofortification plant. It's not even one, they are about 2, 3. During our previous projects, we tried to raise what we call advocates for biofortification in Nigeria. So we selected these people who can influence within who can make change within their space of influence across public, private sector, across the key value chain actors. We selected them, we trained them, and youth were there. We trained them on this, and since then, they've been running the platform. And there is another one from one of our national institutes that's trained individuals on sweet potato, orange flesh sweet potato. So they form a platform as well. The innovation there is all the stakeholders of the value chain, they are there. So they meet themselves on online platform. When that project was on, we had physical meeting where we trained and all that and formed them from officially. So they are running. So whoever is interested, we share it, we share the link, we share the contact with the administrator and join. They speak to themselves there. Okay, I have about 45 crop, I just harvested, I need market. Oh, somebody is in need of it. So they solve the problems, and the one that is beyond them, they bring it to people like us or other government or development partners to address for them. So they are there, and it's national. They are all over the country. The members are from all over the country.
Thank you very much. Professor Tsenko, one question, especially regarding consumers and farmers' acceptance of those varieties of tomatoes in particular.
Yes, what is exactly the question? Sorry.
Specifically, I will read it. I would like to find out if there is an effort in the project to introduce the tomato varieties with long shelf life and climate resilient traits to Africa. Is there any effort to also understand farmers and consumers' acceptance of these great novel varieties?
We certainly have to reach the both farmers and consumers. This was not planned as my task within Healthy Diets of Africa, but I will be more than happy to contribute to this, because I think this is eventually what has to be done. I think other partners could also help, other project partners could also help to reach us many farmers and consumers as possible, because we now understand, we didn't know when we started, and now we understand the great value of this, and this should reach as many people as possible.
Thank you. One question for Professor Ali. How can use of nanoparticles contribute to biofortification of crops?
Nanoparticles? Yes, this potentially is an approach. You can introduce metabolic precursors for potentially via nanoparticles. I think this is an unresearched aspect that I'm not sure it needs. That will also need a lot of regulatory conditions, because you're introducing potentially non-biological matrices to the plants, and I'm not aware of very strong evidence that this is a viable route as yet. But it's very much a research frontier, so potentially this would work. I know of efforts to use nanoparticles as a means of introducing nitrogen-fixing bacteria to leaves in rice, for example, And these look really, really impressive. So I think under certain conditions, this might be possible, but I'm currently not aware of a nutritional, strong evidence that it's a powerful route for enhancing nutritional important compounds.
Thank you. One other question for Dr. Forby. What is the role of large-scale producers, agricultural producers, in the efforts you're rolling out for biofortified value chains?
Fantastic. Thank you for that question. The large-scale producers have role. Like I said in the presentation, the products are there that we have developed from biofortified crop, which industrialists, food industry can pick up and scale it up to large scale. In fact, that's the whole idea of what we're saying. The youth that is making products there, she's making gari, she's making crisps from vitamin A sweet potato, and a lot of them are doing that. I mean, large scale industries just need to pick this formula, scale it up, and blow it out. That is even what we want to see at any time. So the technology is there, it's just for them to apply and to scale up and use. And come to acceptance. Most of those products are well accepted to hit commercial markets.
Thank you. I see here another question, probably this one for Dr. Sally. What are the loss rates in biofortification, given that some products will be further processed before being consumed? I think this applies very well to us, right?
Yes. So if for biofortified tubers like cassava, potatoes, the loss rate is practically zero, right? Because the eatable part, the processing doesn't really affect the eatable portions of where the nutrients accumulate. Probably tomato as well. But if you look at cereals like maize and rice, if you look at maize, for example, biofortified maize, you know, the minerals or the nutrients accumulate in the endosperm, so that is no problem. And the milling process for maize, you simply get up the coat, which has very low nutrient levels. For rice, is the opposite. You know, when you biofortify rice or the minerals, except you really target it so that the minerals are in the endosperm, if they remain on the pericarp, and then during milling, you can lose up to 100%. You know, if you do polished rice, you can lose up to 100%. So that is why it is important for rice processing to be careful. We encourage that rice should be parboiled to really drive those nutrients into the endosperm, so that, and then milled mildly to preserve some of the fibers, you know, so that, you know, there is minimal losses of the nutrients in the milled rice. This is what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see, I think one of our panelists would like to intervene. Dr. Forby, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to follow up on what Dr. Sally said on the loss. Typically, at post-harvest, in processing, we experience losses. That is normal. It's no different from what we experience with our, non-biofight crops. Of course, between harvesting and processing, there is a loss, which we try as much as possible to minimize, like he said. And minimizing it has to do with the kind of processing that we give to it. For biofortified crops, especially the ones that are vitamin A biofortified, vitamin A, everybody knows that is not stable. So we guide the kind of products and processing techniques that we give to them to preserve as much as possible. When it comes to, for instance, some products, we guide the kind how you dry it. You don't put it under the sun because vitamin A will not stay. For other things like zinc, iron, they may, their nutrient retention level differs. And that's why we come up with products that minimize losses during processing and retain as much as possible. In some cases, we promote puree against flour. And when we promote flour, we promote particular type of drying methods to retain, otherwise the biofortification in there will be lost. To retain the beta carotene as much as possible. Our various recipes, they speak into that. We emphasize that minimal loss of nutrients in processing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for your thoughtful questions and engagement. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's discussion. So to recap, I think let's remind that good nutrition, right, is fundamental to life, and it fuels our ability to grow, learn, work, and thrive. And biofortified crops can play a crucial role in helping African countries achieve both food security and nutrition, especially for the most vulnerable populations. And today's session has shown that innovations already exist. And I think it is our shared responsibility to champion them, scale them effectively, and ensure that they reach every household. Thank you for joining us today, and please stay connected by following Healthy Diet for Africa project on social media for updates on our future webinars. We look forward to connect with you again in our next session. Thank you to all of you, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.